Post-Meridian Radio Players present The Sign of Four, or The Problem of the Sholtos, by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The Sign of Four might never have been written had it not been for Oscar Wilde. In 1889, Arthur Conan Doyle's career was at a crossroads. His medical practice was struggling, and his writing had achieved few sales or critical notices. Uncertain of his future, Doyle chanced to meet the infamous Oscar Wilde during a dinner in London. Wilde was encouraging to Doyle, telling him that he had read his most recent novel, Micah Clark, and enjoyed it. His faith in his own abilities restored, Doyle joined Wilde in publishing new novels within the publication Lippincott's Monthly. Wilde's novel was The Portrait of Dorian Gray. Doyle's novel, his second to feature Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, was The Sign of Four. We now take you to Baker Street, late in the year 1888.
Sherlock Holmes took his hypodermic syringe from its neat Morocco case. With long, sinewy fingers, he rolled back his left shirt cuff, revealing his forearm dotted and scarred with innumerable puncture marks. Finally, he thrust the sharp point of the needle home and sank back into his velvet-lined armchair with a long sigh of satisfaction. Which is it today? Morphine or cocaine?
Cocaine. A 7% solution. Would you care to try it?
No, indeed. My constitution is still not recovered from the Afghan campaign. I cannot afford to throw extra strain upon it.
I suppose, Watson, that cocaine's influence is physically bad.
You suppose?
But my mind rebels at stagnation. I abhor the dull routine of existence and crave mental exaltation. Give me problems, give me work, give me the most abstruse cryptogram, and I can dispense with artificial stimulants. That is why I have created my own particular profession. I fancy I am the only one in the world.
The only unofficial detective.
The only unofficial consulting detective. I am the last and highest court of appeal in detection. When Gregson, Lestrade, or Athelney Jones are out of their depths, which is their normal state, they lay the matter before me so I may pronounce a specialist's opinion. I claim no credit. The work itself is my reward. But you yourself had some experience of my methods in the Jefferson Hope case.
Yes, indeed. I was never so struck by anything in my life. I even embodied it in a small brochure, A Study in Scarlet.
I glanced over it. Honestly, I cannot congratulate you. Observation and deduction is an exact science, but you have attempted to tinge it with romanticism, which produces much the same effect as if you worked a love story into the fifth proposition of Euclid.
But the romance was there. I could not tamper with the facts.
Some facts should be suppressed, or at least some restraint should be observed in recording them.
You spoke just now of observation and deduction. Would you think me impertinent to put your theories to a test?
On the contrary, I should be delighted to look into any problem you submit to me.
I have here a watch which has recently come into my possession. What can you tell me of the previous owner?
No, there is hardly any data. The watch has been recently cleaned, which robs me of the most suggestive facts.
Yes, it was clean before being sent to me.
Though unsatisfactory, I should judge that the watch belonged to your elder brother, an untidy man of careless habits. He had good prospects, but threw away his chances, lived for some time in poverty, with occasional intervals of prosperity, and finally, after taking to drink, died. I'm afraid that is all I can gather.
This is unworthy of you, Holmes. I cannot believe that you would make inquiries into the history of my unhappy brother and then pretend to deduce the knowledge in some fanciful way.
My dear doctor, pray accept my apologies. Viewing the matter as an abstract problem, I had forgotten how personal it might be to you. I assure you, however, that I never knew you had a brother until I saw the watch.
Then how did you know all these facts? They're correct in every particular.
I could only say what was probable.
Well, but it was not mere guesswork.
I never guess. It is a shocking habit.
I suppose you deduced it was my brother from the initials on the back, but the rest is fantastic.
What seems strange to you is only because you did not follow my train of thought. For example, observe the lower part of the watch case. You will notice that it is cut, marked, and dented in at least two places. Surely a man who treats a 50-guinea watch so cavalierly must be a careless man.
I see.
It is customary for pawnbrokers to scratch the ticket numbers upon the inside of a watch's case. There are no less than 4 such numbers on this watch. Inference: your brother was often at low water. Secondary inference: he had occasional bursts of prosperity, or he could not have redeemed the pledge. Finally, I ask you to look at the keyhole. Scratches all round, marks where the key has slipped. You will never see a drunkard's watch without them. Where is the mystery in all this?
It is as clear as daylight. I should have had more faith in your marvelous faculty. Have you any professional inquiries at present?
None. Hence the cocaine. What is the use of having powers, Doctor, when one has no problem upon which to exert them? Ah, but there may be hope yet. Come in, Mrs. Hudson.
A young lady for you, sir. She left her card.
Miss Mary Morstan. Ask the young lady to step up, Mrs. Hudson.
Very good, sir. This way, young miss.
Miss Morstan was a young lady, small, dainty, well-gloved, and dressed in the most perfect taste. In an experience of women which extends over many nations and 3 separate continents, I have never looked upon a face which gave a clearer promise of a refined and sensitive nature. I could not help but observe, however, that as she took the seat which Sherlock Holmes offered, her lip trembled, and she showed every sign of intense inward agitation.
I have come to you, Mr. Holmes, because you once assisted my employer, Mrs. Cecil Forrester, with a domestic complication.
Mrs. Cecil Forrester? Yes, I believe I was of some service to her. Her case, however, was a simple one.
She did not think so. But at least you cannot say the same of mine. I can hardly imagine anything more strange, more utterly inexplicable than my current situation.
You intrigue me, Miss Morstan. State your case.
If you will excuse me.
If your friend would be good enough to stay, he might be of inestimable service to me.
Oh, well, very well then.
Briefly, the facts are these. My father was a senior captain in an Indian regiment. In the year 1878, he obtained 12 months' leave and came home to see his only child. Upon arrival, he telegraphed me from London and directed me to come down to the Langham Hotel at once. His message, as I remember, was full of kindness and love. The following morning, on reaching the Langham, I was informed that Captain Morstan had gone out the night before and had not returned. From that day to this, no word has been heard of my unfortunate father. He came home with his heart full of hope, and instead...
The date?
He disappeared upon the 3rd of December, 1878, nearly 10 years ago.
His luggage?
There was nothing in it to suggest a clue. Some clothes, some books, and some curiosities from the Andaman Islands. He had been one of the officers in charge of convicts there.
Had he any friends in town?
Only one that we know of, Major Sholto of his own regiment. He had retired some little time before and settled in Upper Norwood. We communicated with him, of course, but he did not even know that his brother officer was in England.
Perhaps a subsequent interview?
I'm afraid Major Sholto died.
When?
Upon the 28th of April, 1882.
A singular case.
I have not yet described to you the most singular part. About 6 years ago, to be exact, the 4th of May, an advertisement appeared in the Times asking for the address of Miss Mary Morstan, and stating that it would be to her advantage to come forward. By the advice of Mrs. Forrester, I published my address in the advertisement column, and the same day a small anonymous cardboard box arrived, which I found to contain a very large and lustrous pearl. Since then, every year upon the same date, there has appeared a similar box containing a similar pearl, without any clue as to the sender.
Most intriguing. But these are all events in the past. Surely something recent has occurred to bring you to our doorstep.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. This morning I received this letter.
Postmark, London SW, date September 7. Man's thumb mark on corner, probably the postman. Particular man in his stationery. No address. Be at the 3rd pillar from the left outside the Lyceum Theatre tonight at 7 o'clock. If you are distrustful, bring 2 friends. You are a wronged woman and shall have justice. Do not bring police. If you do, all will be in vain. Well, this is a pretty little mystery. What do you intend to do, Miss Morstan?
That is what I want to ask you.
Then we shall most certainly go. You and I and... Why, Dr. Watson is the very man. Your correspondent does say 2 friends. He and I have worked together before.
But would he come?
I shall be proud if I can be of any service.
You are both very kind. I have led a retired life and have no friends whom I could appeal to. If I'm here at 6, it will do, I suppose?
You must not be later. We shall look for you at 6, Miss Morstan. Au revoir, then.
Au revoir.
What a very attractive woman.
Is she? I did not observe.
Oh, Holmes, you are positively inhuman at times.
It is of the first importance not to allow your judgment to be biased by personal qualities.
In this case, however...
I never make exceptions, especially where women are concerned. I assure you that the most winning woman I ever knew was hanged for poisoning 3 children for insurance money. Besides, there is no great mystery in this matter. The facts offer only one explanation.
What, you have solved it already?
Well, that would be too much to say. But do you not find the date of Major Sholto's death suggestive? The 28th of April, 1882?
I may be obtuse, Holmes, but I fail to see what this suggests.
No? You surprise me. Look at it in this way. Captain Morstan disappears. The only person in London whom he could have visited is Major Sholto. 4 years later, Sholto dies. Within a week of his death, Captain Morstan's daughter receives a valuable present, which is repeated year to year, and now culminates in a letter describing her as a wronged woman. What wrong can it refer to except this deprivation of her father? And why should the presents begin immediately after Sholto's death, unless Sholto's heir knows something of the mystery and desires to make compensation?
But what a strange compensation. And how strangely made. Why, too, should he write a letter now, rather than 6 years ago?
There are certainly difficulties, but I trust our expedition tonight will solve all.
I sat in the window pondering Holmes' words, but my mind could not help but run upon our visitor. Her smiles, the rich tones of her voice, the strange mystery which overhung her life. Such dangerous thoughts came into my head that I ran to my desk and plunged furiously into recording my notes upon the case. Who was I, an army surgeon with a weak leg and a weaker bank account, that I should dare to think of such things? At just past the hour, Miss Morstan's four-wheeler pulled up outside of Baker Street. Holmes and I boarded, and we trotted off for the Lyceum Theatre. It was a September evening, and the yellow street lamps streamed out through the London fog, throwing a murky, shifting radiance across the crowded streets.
Major Sholto and Papa were in command of the troops at the Andaman Islands, so they grew to be particular friends. Papa's letters were full of allusions to the Major.
Do you have any of these letters?
No, although I did bring this, a curious paper found on Papa's desk, which no one could understand. I thought you might care to see it, although I don't suppose it could be connected.
You are certainly a model client. Let us see now. Paper of native Indian manufacture. Diagram of a large building with numerous passages, one marked with a small cross and inscribed 3.37 from left. 4 crosses in the corner, under which is written the sign of the 4, Jonathan Small, Muhammad Singh, Abdullah Khan, Dost Akbar. It is evidently a document of importance, though I do not see how this bears upon the matter at hand. It has been kept carefully in a pocketbook, for the one side is as clean as the other.
It was in his pocketbook that we found it.
Preserve it carefully, Miss Morstan, for I begin to suspect that this matter may be much deeper than I had first supposed. We've arrived at the Lyceum.
At the Lyceum Theatre, the crowds were already thick, and in front a continuous stream of four-wheelers rattled up, discharging their cargoes of shirt-fronted men and beshawled women. We had hardly reached our rendezvous with the third pillar before a small, brisk coachman accosted us.
Miss Morstan?
I am Miss Morstan.
You will excuse me, miss. I must ask your word of honour that neither of your companions is a police officer.
You have my word.
Very well. If you and your friends would climb aboard.
Where are we
No
going?
questions, miss. Now, if you please.
Very well.
We boarded the four-wheeler, and the man who had addressed us mounted the box. He whipped up his horse, and we plunged away at a furious pace through the foggy streets. At first I had some sense of the direction we were driving, but soon, what with our pace in the fog, I lost my bearings and knew nothing, save that we seemed to be going a very long way. Sherlock Holmes, however, was never at fault.
Rochester Row? Now, Vincent Square out on the Vauxhall Bridge Road. We're making for the Surrey side, apparently. Yes, I thought so. Now the bridge. You can just catch glimpses of the river. Now, Cold Harbour Lane. Our quest does not appear to take us to very fashionable regions.
At last our cab drew up to an isolated house, dark save for a single glimmer in the kitchen window. Our driver quickly escorted us inside.
They're here, Mr. Sholto.
Show them in, Williams. Show them straight into me.
This way.
Come in. Your servant, Miss Morstan, your servant, gentlemen. Pray, step into my little sanctum. Mr. Thaddeus Sholto, that is my name. You are Miss Morstan, of course, and these gentlemen.
This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
Oh, a doctor! Have you your stethoscope? I have grave doubts as to my mitral valve. Would you be so kind as to...
Afraid I left my stethoscope back in Baker Street.
A pity. A pity. You'll excuse my anxiety, Miss Morstan. I have long had suspicions as to that valve. Indeed, had your father not strained his heart, he might still be alive.
Oh, I see. I knew in my heart that he was dead.
I'm so sorry.
I can give you every information, and what is more, I can do you justice, whatever Brother Bartholomew might say. But let us have no outsiders, no police or officials.
Whatever you say will go no further.
I agree.
That is well. That is well. I trust that you have no objection to the odor of Eastern tobacco. I am nervous, and I find my hookah an invaluable sedative. That is better.
You will excuse me, Mr. Sholto, but I'm here at your request to learn something which you desire to tell me. It is very late, and I desire our interview to be as short as possible.
But we must take some time, for we shall certainly have to go to Norwood and see Brother Bartholomew. He is very angry with me over my letter. I had quite high words with him only last night.
There will be time to speak at length in the cab. As Miss Morstan remarked, it is late, and we had best proceed to Norwood without delay.
Our cab was waiting outside, and the driver started off at once at a rapid pace. Thaddeus Sholto talked incessantly in a voice which rose high above the rattle of the wheels.
My father, as you may have guessed, was Major John Sholto, once of the Indian Army, retired. My brother Bartholomew and I were his only children. We always knew that some mystery, some danger overhung our father, but he would never tell us what it was he feared. He did have the most marked aversion to men with wooden legs. On one occasion, he actually fired his revolver at a wooden-legged man who proved to be naught but a harmless tradesman. My brother and I used to think this a mere whim of my father's, but events have since led us to change our opinion. Early in 1882, my father received a letter from India. Upon opening it, he nearly fainted with fright, and from that day he sickened to his death. What was in the letter we could never discover, but by the end of April, his condition had deteriorated beyond all hope, and he summoned us to his bedside for a last communication. I shall try and recite it to you in his own words.
My sons, one thing weighs heavily upon my mind at this supreme moment. My treatment of poor Morstan's orphan. I will tell you now how her father died. Morstan had a weak heart, but concealed it. I alone knew his secret. When in India, he and I chanced into a considerable treasure. I brought it over to England, and on the night of Morstan's arrival, he came straight over here to claim his share. We had a difference of opinion as to the division of the treasure, and soon came to heated words. Morstan had sprung angrily out of his chair, and suddenly he pressed his hand to his heart and fell backwards, cutting his head against the treasure chest. When I stooped over him, I found to my horror that he was dead.
I think I feel faint.
Take my hand.
I quickly realized There was every chance that I would be accused of his murder. Morstan had told no soul where he had gone that night, and there seemed no necessity why any soul should ever know. You see that I can hardly be blamed in this matter. No. No, my fault lies only in the concealment of his body, and my own cursed greed, which has withheld the treasure from Morstan's orphan, half of which should rightfully be hers. I wish, therefore, to make restitution. You, my sons, will give Morstan's orphan a fair share of the Agra treasure. Now, come close. The treasure is hidden in... No, not him. Keep him out! For Christ's sakes, keep him out!
Bartholomew and I stared round at the window behind us and saw a horrible face looking in out of the darkness. A bearded, hairy face with wild eyes and an expression of concentrated malevolence. We rushed towards the window, but the man was gone, and when we returned to Father, his head had dropped and his pulse had ceased to beat. We searched the garden that night, but found no sign of the intruder, save for a single footmark and a torn piece of paper affixed to the wall with the words, "The Sign of 4" scrawled across it. What the phrase meant, or who our visitor may have been, we never knew.
Here, at last, is a problem which will tax me to the utmost. Pray continue, Mr. Sholto.
For months, my brother and I dug and delved in every part of the garden without discovering the treasure's whereabouts. It was maddening to think the hiding place had been on Father's lips the moment he died. As we searched, Brother Bartholomew and I had a heated discussion over the pearls I intended for Miss Morstan. It was all I could do to persuade him to let me send her a detached pearl at fixed intervals so that at least she might never feel destitute.
It was a kindly thought and extremely good of you.
We were your trustees, though Brother Bartholomew could not see it so. Our difference of opinion went so far that I left Pondicherry Lodge to take up my own rooms, taking old Williams with me. Yesterday, however, an event of extreme importance occurred. The treasure was discovered. I instantly communicated with Miss Morstan, and it only remains for us to drive out to Norwood and demand our share. I explained my plans to Brother Bartholomew last night, so we shall be expected, if not welcome, visitors.
You have done well, sir, from first to last.
Bartholomew is a clever fellow. He worked out the cubic space of the house and found that the height of the building left 4 feet unaccounted for. He therefore knocked a hole in the ceiling of the highest room, and there, sure enough, stood the treasure chest resting upon 2 rafters. He computes the value of the jewels at not less than £500,000 sterling.
My congratulations. You will soon be a rich woman.
Thank you.
Whoa! Whoa!
Ah, we've arrived. This, Miss Morstan, is Pondicherry Lodge.
It was nearly 11 o'clock when we reached Pondicherry Lodge, a desolate place surrounded by high stone walls topped with broken glass. The lodge itself was a huge clump of a house, all plunged in shadow save where a moonbeam glimmered on a high garret window. The vast size of the building, with its gloom and deathly silence, struck a chill to the heart. Our guide knocked upon the wall's single iron-clamped door with a peculiar rat-a-tat.
Who is there?
It is I, McMurdo. Surely you know my knock by now.
That you, Mr. Thaddeus? But who are the others? I had no orders about them from the master.
No? But I told my brother last night that I should bring some friends.
He ain't at his room today, Mr. Thaddeus. And you know the regulations. I can let you in, but your friends must stay where they are.
This is bad of you, McMurdo. If I guarantee them, that should be enough. The young lady cannot wait on a public road at this hour.
Very sorry, Mr. Thaddeus. Folk may be a friend of yours, but I don't know none of them.
Oh, yes, you do, McMurdo. Have you forgotten the amateur who fought 3 rounds with you at Allison's rooms 4 years back?
Not Mr. Sherlock Holmes. God's truth. If instead of standing here to give me that corset of yours, I'd have known you without question. I have wasted your gifts you have. You would have done well if you had joined the fancy.
You see, Watson, if all else fails, I still have one profession open to me.
In you come, sir. You and your friends. Very sorry, Mr. Thaddeus, but I had to be certain before I let them in. On your way now. Girl path takes you to the main house.
What a strange place.
It looks as though all the moles in England had been let loose upon the yard.
Remember that they were 6 years looking for the treasure. No wonder the grounds resemble a gravel pit.
That is Bartholomew's window up where the moonlight strikes. Yet there must be some mistake. I distinctly told Bartholomew we should be here, but there is no light from within.
None. But hush. What is that?
It is Mrs. Burnstone, the housekeeper. She is the only woman in the house.
Oh, Mr. Thaddeus, sir, come in. I'm so glad you have come, Mr. Thaddeus, sir.
Wait here. I shall be back in a moment.
Our guide left us the lantern, and Holmes swung it slowly round, peering keenly at the great rubbish heap which cumbered the grounds. Miss Morstan and I stood together, and her hand was in mine. A wondrous subtle thing is love, for here were we two who had never seen each other before that day, and yet now in an hour of trouble our hands instinctively sought each other. It seemed the most natural thing in the world. We stood hand in hand like two children, and there was peace in our hearts for all the dark that surrounded us.
Mr. Holmes! Mr. Holmes, come quickly.
What is it?
There is something amiss with Bartholomew. I am frightened. My nerves cannot stand it.
Master locked himself in his room and will not answer me. I feared something was amiss, so he peeped through the keyhole. Oh, Mr. Thaddeus, I have seen Mr. Bartholomew in joy and in sorrow, but I never saw him with such a face as that.
You poor woman. You gentlemen go ahead. I will stay here to comfort her.
Very well. Lead the way, Mr. Sholto.
Bartholomew's room is the third on the right.
No answer. And locked besides. There's something devilish in this. The door must come down. Watson, help me. Put your shoulder to it. 1. 2. Dear God.
Moonlight was streaming into Bartholomew Sholto's chambers, which appeared to be a chemical laboratory. The table was littered with Bunsen burners and test tubes. In the corner stood carboys of acid, one of which appeared to have broken, for a stream of dark-coloured liquid trickled out onto the floor. A ladder stood under an opening in the ceiling, and at the foot a long coil of rope had been carelessly thrown together. In a wooden armchair sat Bartholomew Sholto with his head sunk upon his shoulder, his features and limbs twisted in a most unnatural fashion.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
I'm afraid he's been dead some hours. His body is stiff and cold.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Watson, this instrument on his side table. Have you ever seen its like?
A stick with a stone head shaped like a hammer. What in the world?
And look here, this torn sheet of paper. Ah, note the message inscribed.
The sign of the 4.
In God's name, what does it all mean?
It means murder, Mr. Sholto. Ah, look here, just above the ear. Pick it out, Watson, but be careful, for it is poisoned.
I've never seen a thorn like it. Long, sharp, its point looks glazed with a gummy substance.
Is that an English thorn?
No, certainly not.
No, oh no.
Mr. Sholto?
The treasure. They have robbed him of the treasure. And I was the last person who saw him. I argued with him, and now he is dead. And the police shall be called, and I shall be suspected. I am so.
You have no reason to fear, Mr. Sholto. Take my advice and drive down to the station. Report the matter to the police. We shall wait here until your return.
Of course, of course. Oh dear, I know I shall go mad. I just know it.
Now, Watson, we have half an hour to ourselves. Let's make good use of it. Simple as the case seems now.
Simple? Holmes, this affair grows darker by the moment.
On the contrary, it clears every instant. I only require a few missing links before my case is complete. Now to work. Firstly, how did these folks come, and how did they go?
The door has not been opened since last night. Perhaps the window? No, it is snibbed on the inside.
Let us open it. No water pipe near. Roof quite out of reach. And yet... Ah! See here, Watson. This mark on the sill? This really is a very pretty demonstration.
That is not a footmark.
It is something much more valuable to us. It is the impression of a wooden stump.
The wooden-legged man.
Quite so. But there has been someone else, a very able and efficient ally. Could you scale that wall, Doctor?
We're a good 60 feet from the ground. No footholds nor crevices in the brickwork. It's absolutely impossible.
Without aid it is so. But suppose you had a friend who lowered you a good stout rope, like the one which I see by the ladder. Then you might swarm up, wooden leg and all. You would depart in the same fashion, of course, and your ally would draw up the rope, shut the window, snip it on the inside, and get away in the same way he originally came.
This is all very well, but this mysterious ally...
Ah, yes, the ally. There are features of interest about him which lift the case from the commonplace.
How came he into the room? The door is locked, the window is inaccessible. Perhaps the chimney?
No, the grate is too small.
How, then?
How often have I said to you that when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth?
The hole in the roof.
He must have done so. Up the ladder, Watson, and quickly. Time is short. We shall extend our researches to the room above, the secret room in which the treasure was found. Up you go, old man. The lantern, if you please. Thank you. Small chamber, about 10 feet by 6, floor formed by rafters, thick layer of dust. The roof. Ah, here, you see? A trapdoor which leads out onto the roof. This, then, is the way by which number 1 entered. And indeed, Watson, look here, outlined in the dust. Footprints.
Oh, but barefoot. And so small. Holmes, a child has done this horrid thing.
There is nothing more to be learned here. Let us go back down.
Holmes, those tiny footmarks. How do you explain... What is your theory?
All will be clear soon enough. But hello, we are certainly in luck. Sholto's carboy is cracked, and number 1 has had the misfortune to tread in the creosote. You can see the outline of his small foot at the side of this evil-smelling mess.
But what does that give us?
Why, we have him, Watson. We have him. I know a dog that would follow that scent to the world's end. But hello. Sholto has returned with the accredited representatives of the law. Now, before they come, some instructions for you, Watson. Or perhaps you are too tired?
By no means. I don't think I could rest until I've seen this matter through.
Good man. You must escort Miss Morstan home to Mrs. Cecil Forrester's in Lower Camberwell. It's not very far. After, I wish you to go on to Pinchin Lane. The third house on the right-hand side is a bird stuffer's, Sherman by name. Tell him, with my compliments, that I want Toby at once.
A dog, I suppose.
Yes, a queer mongrel with a most amazing power of scent. I would rather have Toby's help than that of the whole detective force of London. And speaking of which, here comes... My goodness, it's a Thelny Jones.
There's a business. There's a pretty business. Who are all these people? Why, the house seems as full as a rabbit warren.
I think you must remember me, Mr. Athelney Jones.
Why, of course I do. It's Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the theorist. I'll never forget how you lectured us all on inferences and effects in the Bishopgate jewel case. It's true you set us on the right track, but you'll admit it was more good luck than good guidance.
It was a very simple piece of reasoning.
Oh, come now, never be ashamed to own up. But what is all this? Bad business. Bad business. Stern facts here. No room for theories. How lucky I was at the station when the message arrived. Step outside, Sergeant, and you too, Mr. Sholto. Your doctor friend can remain. Now, what do you think the man died of?
Oh, this is hardly a case for me to theorize over.
Dear me. Door locked, I understand. Jewels worth $500,000 missing. How is the window?
Fastened, but there are prints on the sill.
Well, if it was fastened, the prints had nothing to do with the matter. That's common sense. Man might have died in a fit.
But the jewels are missing.
Oh, there is that. I have a theory. These flashes come upon me at times. Sholto was, by his own confession, alone with his brother last night. The brother died in a fit, and Sholto walked off with the treasure. How's that?
At which the dead man very considerately got up and locked the door from the inside.
Well, there's a flaw there. Let us apply common sense to the matter. This Thaddeus Sholto was with his brother. The brother is dead, this much we know. The jewels are gone, so much we also know. No one saw the brother from the time Thaddeus left him, and Thaddeus is evidently in a most disturbed state of mind. His appearance is, well, not attractive. You see how my net begins to close around Thaddeus.
You are not quite in possession of the facts. This splinter of wood, which I have every reason to believe is poisoned, was in the man's scalp. This mysterious note was on the table, and beside it lay this rather curious stone-headed instrument. How does all that fit into your theory?
Confirms it in every respect. House is full of Indian curiosities. If this splinter is poisonous, Thaddeus may well have made murderous use of it. The note is a blind as like as not. The only question is, how did he depart? Of course. Here, Mr. Theorist, here is a ladder. Perhaps there is a hole in the roof. You see, facts are better than theories. My view of the case is confirmed. There is a trapdoor communicating with the roof, and it is partly open.
It was I who opened it.
Oh, indeed. Well, you did notice it then? Well, whoever noticed it, it shows how our gentleman got away. Let me just come down the ladder, and I'll show you how we administer justice at the yard. Inspector!
Sir?
Ask Mr. Sholto to step inside.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sholto, I arrest you in the Queen's name as being concerned in the death of your brother.
Don't fret, Mr. Sholto. I think I can clear you of the charge.
Oh, don't promise too much, Mr. Theorist. You may find it a harder matter than you think.
Not only will I clear him, Jones, but I will make you a present. A description of one of the two people in this room last night. His name, I have every reason to believe, is Jonathan Small. He is poorly educated, short, active, with a wooden stump for his right leg. He is middle-aged, unkempt, much sunburned, and has been a convict. These few indications may be of some assistance to you. The other man...
the other man?
...is a rather curious person. I hope to introduce you to the pair of them before long.
The police had brought a cab with them, and in this I escorted Miss Morstan back to her home. She has told me since that she thought me cold and distant upon that journey. She little guessed the struggle within my breast. If Holmes and I were successful, she would be rich. Was it fair, was it honourable that a half-pay surgeon take advantage of an intimacy brought about by chance? This Agra treasure intervened like an impassable barrier between us. It was nearly 2 o'clock when we reached Mrs. Cecil Forrester's. I was introduced and then departed, promising to call and report any progress we might make with the case. Pinchin Lane was a row of shabby 2-storied brick houses in the lower quarter of Lambeth. I had to knock for some time at number 3 before a face looked out the upper window.
Go on, you drunken vagabond! You kick up any more row, and I'll open the kennels and let out 43 dogs upon you.
I want just one!
I won't be argued with. Now stand clear. When I say 3, out come the ends.
Mr. Sherlock Holmes is...
Mr. Holmes, just a moment. A friend of Mr. Sherlock is always welcome. Step in, sir.
Thank you.
Keep clear of the badger, sir, for he bites. Naughty, naughty, Mr. Stoat. Would you take a nip at the gentleman? Don't mind that, sir. He's only the slow one. Ain't got no fangs, so I gives it the run of the room, but it keeps the beetles down. Now, what was it that Mr. Sherlock wanted, sir?
He wanted a dog of yours.
Ah, that would be Toby.
Yes. Toby was the name.
Toby lives in number 7 on the left. Out you go, Toby.
Roof! Oh. What a stout, lop-eared creature.
Feed him a cube of sugar. Carefully now.
Here you go, boy.
There you go. You made a friend for life.
Having thus sealed our alliance, Toby made no difficulties about accompanying me back to Pondicherry Lodge. The palace clock had just struck 3 when I returned. I found Sherlock Holmes perched upon the roof, seated at one of the corner eaves and smoking his pipe.
That you, Watson?
Yes.
Ah, you have Toby there. Good dog. Athelney Jones has gone and taken most of the staff with him. He's arrested not only friend Thaddeus, but the gatekeeper, the housekeeper, and the Indian servant. We have the place to ourselves, but for a sergeant upstairs.
Holmes, what are you doing up there?
This is the place the fellow entered the house, although I'm at a loss as to how he clambered up here. But what is that black thing down there?
A water barrel.
No sign of a ladder?
No.
Confound the fellow. It's a most breakneck place. I ought to be able to come down where he could climb up. The water pipe feels pretty firm. Here goes, anyhow. Oh!
Holmes!
Oh!
Holmes, be careful!
Oh!
Holmes, you all right?
Right as rain, Watson. The water barrel broke my fall. But it was easy enough to follow the fellow's path across the roof. Tiles were loosened the whole way along, and in his hurry he dropped this.
The cigarette case.
With half a dozen thorns inside, like that which struck Bartholomew Sholto. They're hellish things. I'm delighted to have them, for there is the less chance of you or me finding one in our skin before too long. Now, are you game for a trudge across London, Watson?
Certainly.
Your leg will stand it?
Oh, yes.
Hello, Toby. Look what I have for you. A handkerchief soaked in creosote. Good old Toby. Smell it, Toby, smell it. He has the scent, Watson.
Oh, and he's off like a shot.
Hold the leash tight. We don't want him to get away.
He's heading to that gap in the boundary wall.
No doubt where our quarry gained access to the estate. The smell of creosote is very strong. Roof! Roof! And indeed, Watson, there's the print of a wooden leg stump. What a lucky thing we've had no rain since yesterday. The scent will lie upon the road in spite of their 8 and 20 hours start. Through the gap now and... Seek, Toby, seek!
Oh, he's amazing, Holmes. He never hesitates, just follows the scent without pause.
Toby's nose is a treasure, to be sure. But do not imagine that I depend upon the mere chance one of these fellows put his foot into creosote. I could have traced them in many different ways. This, however, was the readiest, and I should be culpable if I neglected it.
I marvel at your deductions in this case even more than the Jefferson Hope murder. How could you describe with such confidence the wooden-legged man?
Simplicity itself. Consider. 2 officers in command of a convict camp, Morstan and Sholto, learn of a secret treasure. A map is drawn for them by an Englishman named Jonathan Small, signed somewhat dramatically, the Sign of the Four.
I remember his name was upon the chart in Captain Morstan's possession.
Just so. Aided by this chart, the officers, or at least one of them, retrieves the treasure and brings it to England, betraying Small in the process. Now, why did Jonathan Small not collect the treasure himself? The answer is obvious. Jonathan Small and his associates were themselves convicts.
But this is mere speculation.
It is the only hypothesis which covers the facts. Major Sholto remains at peace for some years, happy in possession of his treasure. Then he receives a letter from India which gives him a great fright. Now, what was that?
A letter saying that the men he had wronged had been set free.
Escaped is more likely. What does Sholto do then? He guards himself against a wooden-legged man. A white man, mind you, for he fires a pistol at a white tradesman. Only one white man's name is on the chart, therefore we may say with confidence that the wooden-legged man is Mr. Jonathan Small.
But his appearance, how did you deduce his appearance?
Well, he must be middle-aged and sunburned after serving time in such an oven as the Andamans. His height is readily calculated from the length of his stride, and his hairiness was the one point which impressed itself upon Thaddeus Sholto when he saw him at the window. I don't know that there is anything else.
And his associate?
Oh, well, he is no great mystery, but you will know all about him soon enough. Have you a pistol, Watson?
I have my stick.
Fortunately, I brought my own. We may need it if Toby can locate their lair. Small I shall leave to you, but if the other turns nasty, I shall shoot him dead.
Toby seems to be guiding us towards the docks.
Yes, I suspected as much when he guided us through Kensington Lane. But hello? Toby seems confused.
He's waddling in circles.
What the deuce is the matter with the dog? Surely they would not take a cab from here or go off in a balloon.
Perhaps they stood here for some time. Where are we now? The corner of Knight's Place?
Roof! Roof!
Oh, he's off again.
And with such energy. The scent must really be hot now. We're near the end of our journey, Watson. Be prepared.
Our course now ran down 9 elms until we came to a large timber yard. Here the dog, frantic with excitement, raced through the gate, ploughed through the sawdust and shavings, and finally, with a triumphant yelp, sprang upon a large barrel. With lolling tongue and blinking eyes, Toby stood upon the cask, marked creosote, looking from one to the other of us for some sign of appreciation.
Look, Watson, I should have anticipated this. Creosote is much used about London, especially for the seasoning of wood. Poor Toby is not to blame.
What now? Toby has lost his character for infallibility.
We must get on the proper scent again. Evidently what puzzled the dog at the corner of Knight's Place was that there were 2 different trails running in opposite directions. We took the wrong one. It only remains to follow the other.
We led Toby back to the place where he'd committed his fault. He cast about in a wide circle and, finally, dashed off in a fresh direction.
Good, Toby. We're on the true scent now.
He's headed down Board Street towards the riverside. There's the river, but...
A wharf! The trail ends at a wharf. Bless the luck!
They must have taken a boat from here.
These fellows are sharper than I expected. They have, I fear, covered their tracks. The scent is lost, Watson. Our quarry has escaped.
That was part 1 of The Sign of 4 by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The investigation will continue after a brief intermission.